I used to believe that horror belonged behind movie screens, in dog-eared paperback novels, or in the foggy corners of imagination, reserved only for sleepless nights. But last summer, when I decided to take that road trip across America, the kind of trip every restless soul dreams about, my beliefs changed forever. Let me tell you now, in my own words, what happened out there on those endless highways of the Midwest. This is my story, and when I'm done, you'll understand why I never set foot on the open road again. Friends, you enjoy listening to stories, but you don't subscribe to the channel or like the videos. I request you to please subscribe to the channel right now so that I get more motivation to bring you even more stories. If you help me reach 1,000 subscribers, I promise to bring you extremely scary stories with a truly real feel. 2 horror stories every single day. So go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and now let's move on to today's story. It started simple. I'd been living in Philadelphia for 6 years, suffocating under concrete skies and 9-to-5 schedules. My heart wanted freedom, an open horizon, a stretch of America that wasn't bounded by deadlines or the subway's stale breath. So one night in late June, I packed my old Ford Escape with a cooler, a tent, some journals, and a playlist of classic American rock to keep me company. My plan was naive: drive from the East Coast to the Rocky Mountains with no real schedule, stopping at motels, diners, and maybe sleeping under the stars whenever I felt like it. I told my friends it was about adventure, but deep down, I think I was searching for something lost, or maybe something that had always been missing. I didn't know the road was waiting for me. Hungry. The first few days were bliss. Pennsylvania gave way to Ohio, flat and familiar. Roadside diners smelled of coffee and fried bacon, their neon signs buzzing like tired fireflies. I scribbled little notes in my journal about characters I met: a trucker who swore he once saw a UFO outside Dayton, a waitress with teeth like broken piano keys who kept calling me sweetheart, a hitchhiker I didn't pick up but whose sharp eyes followed my car like a predator tracking prey. But it wasn't until I crossed into Indiana that the strangeness began. It was past midnight, and the roads were nearly deserted. A 2-lane black ribbon cutting through endless cornfields. The moon hung heavy and low, its pale light washing over the stalks that seemed to whisper in the night wind. I'd been driving for hours, highway hypnosis tugging at my thoughts, when I saw it. A gas station, glowing faintly on the horizon. The problem wasn't the gas station itself, but the fact that I'd already passed it earlier that same night. Same tilted sign, Clark's Fuel and Market. Same busted neon O in the word market, leaving it to read market. Same rust-bitten ice machine out front. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe I was just tired, my brain looping landmarks out of exhaustion. Still, I pulled in. As I stepped out of the car, gravel crunching under my boots, a strange silence pressed around me. No crickets, no wind. Only the faint buzz of the failing neon. Inside, the station smelled of mildew and old sugar. The shelves were lined with bags of chips years past their sell-by date. A single cashier sat behind the counter. A man with slick back hair, white as bone, and eyes that looked too wide, like he'd been frozen that way for decades. "Long drive?" he asked when I entered. His voice was smooth, but it vibrated too deep, like air moving through a hollow cavity. "Yeah," I muttered, "heading west." "West," he nodded slowly, tapping a finger on the counter. His nail made a faint metallic sound. A lot of folks heading west lately. Not all of them get there. I laughed nervously. Well, I plan to. He didn't smile. Instead, he slid a map across the counter. A worn highway map of Indiana. A big red mark circled one road snaking south of the main interstate. Take this way, he said. You'll save yourself. Save myself from what? His eyes met mine, and for a moment, I swear, the pupils shifted. Not round, but vertical, like a snake, or something worse. The highway, he whispered. I blinked, unsettled, and when I looked again, the map was gone, and his hands rested on the counter, empty. You okay? I asked. I don't sell maps, he answered flatly. I left without buying anything. The gas meter read full anyway, though I could sworn I'd been near empty when I pulled in. As I got back on the road and the station sank behind me into the corn, I told myself it was just fatigue playing tricks. America is full of weird roadside stops, after all. That's what made the trip exciting. That's what I told myself anyway. 2 hours later, my radio cut out. Static. Not the usual kind, but a low droning hum that seemed to vibrate through the steering wheel. My headlights flickered, and in that brief blackout, I thought I saw something. Or someone, a figure, in the middle of the highway. By the time the lights flashed back on, the road was empty. I didn't sleep that night, not when I pulled into a roadside motel. The sheets smelt like mildew, the old AC blew nothing but warm air, and through the paper-thin walls, I swore I could hear the hum of static, just like the radio, whispering from room to room. When I finally closed my eyes near dawn, dreams came. Bad ones. Dreams of the gas station clerk staring at me with those two wide eyes. Dreams of the red-marked road twisting like a serpent across the map. Dreams of the figure in the highway reaching out a hand as if begging me to stop. I woke to sunlight and thought maybe it was all just a dream. But in the passenger seat of my car, folded neatly on the cracked vinyl upholstery, lay the highway map of Indiana. And the red circle was still there. When I first saw that folded map sitting in the passenger seat, a cold shock ran through me, crawling up my spine like ice water. My first instinct was denial. I hadn't stolen it, hadn't placed it there. Logic demanded some explanation. Maybe the motel staff? Maybe I had hallucinated leaving it behind and just taken it with me absent-mindedly. But deep down, instinct pulled at my chest with a heavier truth. That clerk had wanted me to have it. I should have dumped it in the motel trash, walked away, forgotten it. Instead, I slid it into the glove compartment. Part of me felt like I had no choice. Throwing it away felt dangerous, like insulting something that was already watching me. I left the motel late that morning, sunlight beating down on peeling white paint and buzzing telephone wires. The parking lot was nearly empty, only 2 vehicles, my dusty Ford and a decrepit RV whose curtains swayed even though no wind moved outside. As I pulled out of the lot, I glanced in the rear view. For the briefest second, I swore the RV curtain shifted and a pale hand pressed against the glass. Thin. Too thin. I slammed the pedal harder than I intended. The open highway should have brought me peace. Endless fields rolled by, dotted with barns, silos, and occasional lonely farmhouse. But every time I passed a mile marker, I felt it, like a tug toward the glove box, toward that red-circled road. No matter how loud I turned up my music, no matter how many cigarettes I smoked, my mind kept whispering, "You'll end up there anyway." By late afternoon, I spotted a diner off Route 36.
The sign read Maggie's Eats, painted in cheerful bubble letters, the edges chipped by time. Cars filled the lot, and I told myself a crowded diner meant normalcy, safety. Inside, the place smelled of grease, sugar, and coffee strong enough to raise the dead. A jukebox in the corner crackled out half-broken country songs, and the booths were filled with truckers, young couples, and families. Normal. Comforting. I slid into a booth by the window. A waitress with pin-straight hair and a smile that didn't quite touch her eyes came over. Her name tag said June. "Well, you have, hun." "Just coffee," I replied. And then after a pause added, "Actually, you know any strange roads around here? Off the main interstate?" Her smile froze. For a second, she looked at me like I'd just spoken another language. Then she recovered, scribbling coffee on her pad. "Best stick to the main routes, hun. Nothing but trouble off those back roads." "Why trouble?" She leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Sometimes people don't come back." Something about the way she said it, matter of fact, without drama, hit me harder than a ghost story. When she brought my coffee, she slipped something under the mug, a torn scrap of receipt paper. On it, scrawled in looping pen marks, were 3 words: "Don't take it." I looked up, but June had already turned her back, refilling cups at another table. Back in my car, the warning replayed in my mind. Don't take it. Simple words, yet they carried the weight of prophecy. I drove west until the sun smeared orange and red across the horizon. That was when my GPS flickered. One minute it displayed solid highway lines, the next static. Then a single new road appeared on the glowing screen, unnamed, curving south, the same shape as the red circle on my map. No matter how many times I restarted the device, the road remained. By the time darkness fell, the glowing arrow on the GPS insisted my Ford was inching closer and closer to it, even though I hadn't turned. And then, without realizing how, I had. The road cut away from the interstate like a scar through cornfields. Most signs marked its entrance. The pavement was cracked, weather-bitten, and trees pressed too close along the edges, their branches arching overhead like twisted cathedral beams. I slowed, my headlights carving 2 pale cones into the dark. The silence here was suffocating. No crickets, no frogs, not even the faint chirp of nightbirds. Only my tires crunching over asphalt. A smell hit me next. Damp earth, decay, an undertone like old blood left too long in heat. Everything in me screamed to turn around, yet my hand stayed clamped to the steering wheel. My eyes stayed fixed because something about the road itself felt alive, like it was pulling me forward with invisible strings.
That's when the figure appeared. Not standing this time, crawling. On hands and knees at the roadside, skin gray under my headlights, hair hanging in wet ropes. I swerved, my heart jolting so hard I nearly lost control. The figure didn't chase me, didn't even look up. It just dragged itself, inch by inch, deeper into the ditch beside the trees, vanishing into shadow. I didn't stop. God help me, I just drove faster. Miles blurred together. No matter how far I went, no exits appeared, no driveways, no farmhouses. Just forest pressing tighter. Then came the voices. At first, faint, woven into the hum of the tires, a chorus of whispers, rising and falling in waves just outside my understanding. I flicked the radio on.
only static, threaded with what sounded like laughter. My rearview mirror caught movement. Shapes shifted in the back seat. I whipped my head around, nothing but shadows and crumpled fast food bags, but when I turned back to the road, the passenger seat no longer lay empty. The highway map rested there, unfolded, in fresh, jagged strokes of red ink, where once there had been just one circled road, now more had appeared. Spirals, loops, spirals within spirals, until the entire map blazed with angry circles, and in the very center, scrawled over the place my GPS mark would have been, were two words: keep driving. I don't remember pulling over. All I know is one moment I was gripping the steering wheel, and the next my car idled on the roadside, headlights cutting pale slices through the trees. I was crying. I don't even know when the tears began. That's when I heard the knock. Not from outside, from the trunk. A slow, deliberate thump. 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 I froze, every muscle screaming against motion. The knocking stopped. Silence. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it until the trunk latch clicked. Slow. Careful. Don't open it. The words weren't my own. They vibrated inside my head like someone whispering from the hollow caves of my skull. My ears rang with the command. But part of me needed to know what waited back there. My hand reached for the door handle. Then a blinding beam filled the car. Headlights. Another vehicle pulling up behind me. Relief nearly made me collapse. Another driver, another human being, proof this nightmare wasn't solitary. I jumped out of the car, waving my arms. "Hey, can you help me?" The vehicle idled a few feet back, an old truck, its engine sputtering heavy, headlights brighter than modern bulbs should allow. Through the windshield, I couldn't make out the driver, just a silhouette. The window rolled down. "Lost?" The voice was male, gravelly, and far too familiar. I stepped closer. My heart froze. It was the gas station clerk. The same slicked-back white hair, the same two wide eyes, except now in the glow of his headlights, I could clearly see they weren't eyes at all. They were hollow sockets, pits of blackness that swallowed the light without giving anything back. "Get back in the car," he said. His lips didn't move, but the words filled the air. "Keep driving." I stumbled backwards, shaking my head. No, I want out. I want off this road." He leaned out the truck window, grinning now, his teeth like cracked porcelain. "There is no off." And then the truck's engine roared, and before I could react, it surged forward, straight toward me. I dove aside, hitting the ditch hard, breath knocked from my lungs. My car's alarm screamed as the truck slammed into its rear, shoving the Ford forward onto the road. Fire ripped through metal, tires screeched, and I scrambled on hands and knees just in time to see the impossible. My car didn't crash. It merged. Bent, broken steel stretched and melted, rubber liquefied, headlights fused into twisted forms until the car no longer resembled a vehicle at all. It became something alive. The doors rippled like breathing lungs. The grille opened and closed like gnashing jaws. The map inside fluttered once, then dissolved into the thing's pulsing skin. And then, impossibly, the driver's seat adjusted itself toward me, like a mouth opening wide. The road behind me was gone, only trees growing thicker by the minute. The only way left was forward. The only way left was inside. I climbed back in, because by then I understood. The road didn't want me to leave. It wanted me to belong.
The moment I sat back in that thing that used to be my Ford, the air grew heavy, thick like an unventilated attic. The steering wheel felt warm under my hands, not like machinery, but like flesh. like I was gripping a beating heart. When I pressed the gas, the car didn't roar, it growled. The vibrations weren't mechanical anymore, but organic, crawling through the pedal and into my legs. And the strangest part? The car knew the road. I didn't have to steer. The thing guided itself forward. The headlights stretched unnaturally long, illuminating trees that bent away as if in submission. Branches clawed at the vehicle, but instead of scratching the paint, they seemed to caress its surface, stroking, recognizing it, recognizing me. I told myself it wasn't real. I told myself I would wake up. But then the voices started again. This time clearer, sharper. Not whispers from outside, not static-laced radio tricks. These came from inside the car, from the back seat. I glanced into the rearview mirror, my heart hammering, and nearly swerved off the road. 3 figures sat in the back. They hadn't been there before. The first was a young man, maybe 20, dressed in a Letterman jacket stained with something dark. His head lolled at an angle no living neck should allow. His dead white eyes stared through me. The second was a middle-aged woman with stringy hair hanging over her face, water dripping from her clothes onto the upholstery. It smelled of mildew like drowned weeds. Her lips kept moving, muttering something I could barely catch. Not yet, not yet, not yet. The third was a little girl, no older than 8. She sat stone still, dressed in a faded sundress, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her face, God, her face. It was nothing but shadows, as though every feature had been erased. But I could feel her staring straight into me. The car didn't slow, neither did my heart. "Who are you?" I asked, stupidly, uselessly. The young man twitched, bones cracking. "Same as you," he rasped. His voice was wet, broken, like air forced through drowned lungs. This isn't real." The drowned woman coughed water onto the seat. "It's real enough. You don't leave once you've chosen the road." "I didn't choose it," I shouted. The girl tilted her head, the blank face bent in an unnatural angle, as if someone were twisting clay before it hardened. "Yes, you did." Her voice was mine. Pitch perfect. I wanted to slam on the brakes, to wrench the wheel into the forest and end it all in bark and broken glass. But the car didn't let me. The pedals resisted. The wheel stayed locked. Forward, always forward. Time lost meaning. For what felt like hours, I drove. Passengers breathing, muttering, sometimes silent, sometimes singing in tones that didn't belong to any world I knew. My eyelids burned, but I didn't dare close them. Eventually, the trees broke. The road widened, and before me stretched a town. Not a living town, but one half swallowed by decay. Storefronts slumped on hollow foundations, ponefuls sagged with wires that led nowhere, streetlights flickered though no electricity could possibly flow this deep in the woods. A faded sign leaned drunk against the earth. "Welcome to Carver's Gate. Population 1,872. But every window I passed was dark. Every shop was emptied. Doors swung open in the stale wind, yet no footsteps echoed. Carver's Gate was dead. And yet, not empty. Not entirely. Shapes moved behind curtains as I cruised down its deserted main street. Some pressed faces too close to glass, their faces stretched long, their features blurred as though melted into the window. Others walked jerky across sidewalks, limbs awkwardly snapping in rhythms no human gait could follow. And all of them stopped when I passed, as if they knew me, as if they'd been waiting.
I wanted to roll my window up, but it was already sealed. The handles wouldn't budge. The car wouldn't let me. Instead, the drowned woman in the back giggled through broken teeth and whispered, "Home?" The car finally pulled itself into an empty gas station, if you could call it that. Its sign was the same as before, Clark's Fuel and Market. Only different. The sign leaned at a sharper angle now, rust eating through the poles. The ice machine had exploded, spilling jagged teeth of ice that somehow never melted onto oil-stained concrete. And behind the glass windows, standing at the counter just as he had miles, hours, maybe days ago, waited the clerk. The same slick white hair, the same hollow sockets where eyes should be. He smiled, made good time. The car shuddered to a halt. I forced my door open, stumbling on unsteady legs. Cold wrapped me, though the air was still summer warm. "What do you want from me?" The clerk tilted his head, his neck bent too far, vertebrae crackling like dry twigs. "You're on the highway now. It don't give, it don't take, it keeps." "I don't understand."
The map appeared in his hands, fluttering as though on an invisible wind. Ribbons of red circled and spiraled every inch. "There's only one way forward." I shook. Not from anger, not just terror, but fury against the sick sense that he was right, that all of this had been planned long before I set foot in my Ford. I didn't want this road. "You all say that." He grinned, wider now, teeth splitting his cheeks. "Yet here you are." Through the glass door, I caught sight of movement. Figures stepping into the forecourt, dozens of them, pale and bent, leaking from every alley and crumbling building of Carver's Gate. Their eyes glowed faint white in the dark. No pupils, only light like flipped-back mirrors. My passengers exited the car to join them. The drowned woman dragged her bare feet along asphalt puddles. The jock's broken neck made his head swing loosely as he walked. The little girl stayed closest, though, her shadowed face never leaving mine. "This isn't a road trip anymore." Her voice was still mine. "It's a road home." The crowd shuffled closer, one united movement, like a tide dragging me toward Undertow. And all at once, something inside me snapped. "No!" I bolted for the car door, shoving back against the weight of the thing's fleshy metal resistance. But somehow it let me in again. Maybe because it wanted me inside to finish what had already begun. The engine purred, deeper than oil and pistons should allow. And the road tilted itself open again, stretching further into black. I drove, fast, faster, leaving behind Carver's Gate, leaving behind the clerk and his crowd, leaving behind answers I wasn't sure I wanted. But even as the trees closed once again and the road curved into itself, I knew the truth. Carver's Gate wasn't behind me. It was ahead, too. Because that's what the highway was. An endless loop. A cage that stretched forever west, forever east. Every road leads back to the same place. And sooner or later, I'd arrive again. Because I wasn't traveling anymore. I belonged. I kept driving. There was nothing else to do. The longer I pushed forward, the more impossible the world became. My headlights cut across roads that bent at impossible angles, curving upward into the sky before snapping flat again like broken bones. The trees pressed tighter, but when I peered too long into their shadows, the trunks seemed to shift. Not mere wood, but rib cages, hundreds of rib cages piled on either side of the asphalt. Time dissolved. My body knew hours were passing, but the sky never changed, locked in a perpetual midnight. And always ahead, the road. I thought I could trick it. At one bend, I slammed the wheel hard, forcing the car into the trees. The tires screeched as bark ripped away and branches scraped the glass. For a second, I thought I'd done it, thought I'd escaped. But when the car broke through, headlights sweeping onto open blacktop again, the road was still there. Same cracked pavement, same suffocating dark. I laughed, or maybe cried. The sound in my throat was no longer human. After what might have been days, a new sound rose above the drone of the engine. Music. At first, faint, like an old phonograph spinning out of tune. But as I pressed forward, it grew. A slow waltz. Violins scraping against bow, warped and dragging as if played underwater. The road widened again, and there it was. A motel. Lights glowed red in the office window. A neon sign buzzed alive. Letters flickering. Rest a while in. Below it, oddly polished and perfect, a vacancy sign gleamed in the dark. The parking lot, though, it was full of cars. Dozens of them, every brand, every decade. But they weren't abandoned. They were part of the lot, literally. Fenders had melted into pavement, tires were fused with asphalt like the blacktop had grown up around each vehicle, swallowing them whole. And what made my skin crawl most deeply of all, each driver's side window still held a faint pale silhouette. Heads bowed forward onto steering wheels. Sleeping. Or worse. The car slowed on its own, easing into an empty space waiting for me. My chest tightened. I tried to resist, tried to keep my foot heavy on the gas, but the engine idled, locking me into that slot like a coffin sliding into its drawer. The motel door opened before I even moved. A man stepped out. Not the clerk this time. This one was tall, rail-thin, wearing a manager's dusty suit, bow tie neatly tied his throat. His face, God, his face, too smooth, too stretched, like skin pulled taut over an empty mask. Where his eyes should have been, there were coins, silver coins, dented and stained, but gleaming even in the dark. He raised one hand in stiff, mannequin-like greeting. "Welcome, traveler." His voice was polite, practiced, each syllable punctuated as though rehearsed. "Your room is ready." My throat trembled. "I'm not staying here." The man's smile tightened, just a thin, papery stretch of skin. "Everyone rests eventually. Highway takes its toll." Around me, I heard the doors of other cars groaning, opening. Pale figures began stepping into the night. Broken-neck men, drowned women, children with erased faces, and worse, creatures I had no names for, shapes that seemed only half-born, their features dripping like wax left too close to fire.
I bolted. Not for the office, not from my room, straight into the trees beyond the lot. Branches cracked, thorns ripped at my arms, but I didn't stop until my lungs burned. And then, the trees bent apart. The blacktop was under my feet again. Pavement, the same road, waiting. Behind me, the tall man's voice still carried, as though whispered into my ear. "Your room will wait. It always waits." I ran back to the car, because there was no other choice. The door opened like it had been expecting me, and once inside, the seatbelt curled across my chest by itself, locking me in. The engine purred, and the highway stretched forward again. That was how the loops revealed themselves. Every time I fled, I came back. Every time I tried to veer off, the road bent to swallow me whole. The towns changed, the stops changed, the faces changed, but always, it was the same path. After the motel came the diner again, Maggie's Eats. June still stood there, smile strained, pouring coffee into cracked mugs. I pulled in without meaning to, stepping into the same booth I'd chosen before, like destiny rather than choice. She came to me, pad in hand. "What'll you have, hun?" I wanted to scream, to shake her, to ask if she knew, if she remembered. "I've been here already." Those dim eyes flickered something human for the briefest second. Her lips parted, then clamped shut again. She leaned closer and whispered the same words she had before. "Best stick to the main routes." And again, when she left the coffee, a folded slip of paper hid beneath the mug. The same words in looping pen. "Don't take it." I pushed it across the table. "You already gave me this." Her hand froze. Her lips quivered, smile still nailed in place. And then I watched in horror as she slowly bled from her nose. Blood, thick, blacker than it should have been, rolling down her upper lip. Her body convulsed. "Not supposed to," she rasped. Her voice wasn't just hers anymore. It echoed like multiple throats choking. The jukebox squealed behind me, a song beginning. Not a tune I knew, just one word stretched into eternity. "Drive." I bolted before she collapsed. The worst realization came then. This wasn't random. It wasn't madness. It was a system. A loop built to wear me down. Every stop, every figure, every whispered warning wasn't meant to save me. It was meant to test me. Would I try to escape? Would I cling to denial? Would I rest at the motel, eat at the diner, fill myself with small comforts? Or would I obey? Would I do what the red circles had always commanded? Keep driving. And God help me, that's what I did. For nights and days without sunrise or sunset, just plunging forward, drowned in hunger and thirst, yet never dying, never quite breaking. The passengers rotated, sometimes the jock, sometimes the drowned woman, sometimes strangers whose names I'd never learned but who whispered confessions in my ear about lives they'd once lived before they too chose the wrong road. At last, exhaustion numbed my fear. I didn't see monsters anymore, not fully, just faces blurring past windows, whole towns with no names, gas stations that always had the same clerk waiting, hollow sockets watching. And then, something new. The road opened to reveal not a town, not a station, not a diner, but a mirror. An enormous wall of glass, stretching higher than I could see, reflecting the road itself. My car. My face, drawn, filthy, eyes bulging with sleepless terror. And in the mirror's car, another me. Not terrified, not broken, calm. Driving with both hands steady on the wheel, no passengers in the back. Alone. Free. I pressed the brake. This time the car let me. For the first time, the car let me stop. And across the mirror wall, the other me did not stop. He smiled, faintly, serenely, and kept driving ahead until he disappeared into black. The wall cracked, and behind the breaking glass came only more road. And Carver's Gate, waiting. Again. That was when I laughed for real, hysterics tearing up my throat until I nearly vomited, not because it was funny, but because I finally understood. The highway wasn't just a place, it was a decision, and I'd already made it.
By the time I reached Carver's Gate again, I didn't even flinch.
The same tilted population sign loomed out of the dark. The same buildings sagged with hollow eyes. The same clerk waited behind his counter, sockets grinning emptily when my headlights swept across him. But this time, something had shifted. This time, I wasn't fighting anymore. The car rolled itself down Main Street, past stores that had withered, past windows where pale faces pressed closer, eager, hungry. Instead of recoiling, I watched them, studied them. Their blurred mouths opened, and together they chanted one relentless word: drive, drive, drive. The drowned woman was back in the back seat. She met my eyes in the mirror, lips dripping stagnant water. "If you stop, you rot." Her fingers dug crescents into the vinyl, fusing with it. And the little girl, still faceless, sat next to her. Only now her voice wasn't mine anymore. It was deeper, older, stretched like leather baked in sun. It isn't a road trip. It's a road becoming. The car swerved on its own, this time not toward a station, not toward a diner. It guided me back to the motel. The Rest-A-While Inn glowed impossibly bright, every neon buzzing in harmony with the waltz I'd first heard. Dozens of doors now stood open, revealing rooms lit with pale yellow light. Shadows shifted inside every single one. Waiting. My hands trembled on the wheel. I knew, bone deep, that if I stayed here, if I stepped into one of those rooms, I'd never leave again. I'd join the silhouettes I'd seen melted into their cars outside. People who'd stopped resisting. People who had checked in and hadn't checked out. The tall man emerged again, coin eyes flashing silver. His lips cracked into that polite crescent of a smile. "Welcome back. Your key is ready." He held out his hand, and here's the strangest part. For one heartbeat, I wanted to take it, because the thought of resting, even in that grotesque mockery of a motel, seemed like mercy compared to the endless road. I opened the door. My foot touched pavement. The drowned woman hissed, "Not yet." Behind me, the girl tilted her featureless head. "The room isn't yours." I froze. Then, in the pool of neon behind the manager's stretched grin, I saw myself. Another me already checking in, standing tall, face calm, shoulders relaxed like a businessman finishing a long trip. He signed a guest book I couldn't see, turned and carried a room key into one of those glowing doors. And the coin-eyed man nodded at me. "That room belongs to someone else now." I shut the car door and slammed the gas. The engine howled, not in protest, but in triumph. The motel vanished in the rear view, its lights collapsing into a point until only the black road remained. The loops were breaking. Not gone, never gone, but different. The map appeared in the passenger seat again, sprawling now not just with circles, but with veins, arteries, a network of infinite loops spiraling into one another. It no longer looked like Indiana or America. It looked like flesh, like the nervous system of some inconceivably huge creature. And I realized I wasn't driving across the Midwest anymore. I'd been driving inside something all along. A body, a beast the size of a country. Roads were its veins, cars its cells, travelers its blood. And I was just one more droplet flowing into the circulatory system of the endless highway. I laughed until my throat tore raw, and that's when the truck appeared. The same old truck, rusted, sputtering engine, the same driver, white slicked-back hair, hollow sockets grinning wide. He pulled up beside me at impossible speed, his vehicle keeping pace no matter how hard I floored the gas. "You see it now," he shouted over the roar of engines.
His lips moved this time, stretching wider and wider, as if his skin would rip. "Why me?" I screamed back, my vision blurred with fury, with hunger, with madness.
His sockets widened, black pits glowing with some pale fire deep inside. "Because you wanted it." I started to deny it, but the words caught. Because he was right. Hadn't I left my life behind willingly? Hadn't I craved an open horizon, an escape, a place where nothing tied me down? The road was just the answer to my prayer, twisted and raw. It gave me freedom, yes, but freedom without end. A journey with no destination. The kind of liberty that becomes a prison. I pressed the pedal harder, past the floorboard, past metal, until my leg burned. The car screamed, the road tore open, both our vehicles locked in a race that wasn't a race at all, but a ritual. One driver against another, both bound to the same veins. And in that blur, I realized there would be no escape, but maybe there could be surrender. Up ahead, the road split. A fork, the first I'd ever seen. The left lane bent back toward the familiar dark. The right one bled light. Not daylight, not salvation, but something brighter than night, boiling and searing at the edges, too sharp for the eyes. The truck driver grinned wider, swerving violently left. "See you again," he mouthed, and then he was gone. While I turned right. The light swallowed me whole. The passengers vanished. The drowned woman dissolved into mist. The broken man snapped bone by bone until only dust remained. The little faceless girl leaned once into my ear and whispered, "You're part of it now." Then she was gone too. The wheel melted into my hands, or maybe my hands melted into the wheel. I couldn't tell anymore. The line between leather and flesh blurred until it was skin on skin, steering and bone all one. My seat vibrated with a heartbeat not my own, and I felt it now. The road was not taking me anywhere. The road was taking me in. I knew in that last moment, that I would never reach California, never see another truck stop, never taste a real diner burger again. I would never leave the highway, because I was the highway now. Every driver who strays, who hungers, who pushes past the main routes and takes that one wrong turn will feel me under their tires. They'll hear me in the static of their radios. They'll see me staring from the rearview mirror. Me, the last traveler, the road they can never escape. And to them, I'll whisper the only truth that matters. Keep driving.